It's a Monday. We're back at it. Good to have you with us. Ed Schultz, News and Commentary. We had an interview on the News with Ed on RT last Thursday. A gentleman named Tim Canova. I want you to pay attention to this guy, as if you aren't already, if you're a Bernie supporter. I love this. This is democracy. You know, there's an old saying, you screw with the bull, you get the horns. Bernie Sanders is now telling all of his supporters, this is who I want to win that district in Florida, to get rid of Debbie Wasserman-Schultz. And if Debbie Wasserman-Schultz, if this is her leadership to pick on the Sanders campaign and demand apologies and try to reckon what went wrong at the Nevada State Convention, her way of doing it is to work Sanders over. Guess what? You mess with the bull, you get the horns. Bernie Sanders is now basically telling everyone who has donated to him that if you want change, Debbie Wasserman-Schultz has to go, and a man named Tim Canova should win that primary on August 30th. Here it is.
Well, clearly I favor her opponent. His views are much closer to mine than as Wasserman-Schultz's. And let me also say this, in all due respect to the current chairperson, if elected president, she would not be reappointed to be chair of the DNC.
All right, he's going to be firing some folks. So, look, Debbie Wasserman-Schultz, she brought this on herself. And she chose sides. She went after Bernie Sanders, blaming him for, quote, the violence. And that was the word she used. There was no violence. No one was hurt. There were no arrests. Nobody went to the hospital. But it was her interview on a number of cable stations that used the word violence and pinned it on Bernie Sanders that he should be doing more. And that just snowballed. That was just like the domino effect. Then you got senators on Capitol Hill late last week blaming Bernie as well, to the point where Dianne Feinstein says, well, she doesn't want to go back to the 1968 convention. You know, this is just keeping Bernie in the race even more, and it's keeping his people energized. And Debbie Wasserman-Schultz, from a leadership standpoint of the DNC, I don't know how effective she could be right now. So I'm going to go to Mitch Ceasar. He is the chairman of the Broward County Democratic Party, former Florida Democratic Party chair, good friend of ours. Mitch, good to have you with us.
Good to be with you.
All right, sort this out for us. Debbie Wasserman-Schultz's world right now. Is she in trouble? How does she work out of this?
Well, I mean, it's hard to determine. I mean, they all do polling, have their internal polls and play with it. She's still going to be tough to beat because she's an incumbent, and frankly, she's a female. But on the reverse side, this is the first challenge she's had in a Democratic primary in 24 years, since the first time she ran for office, which was for state representative here. And that was the last time she had a primary. Broward being so Democratic, once you have the nomination, that's pretty much the ball game. So this is certainly the first serious challenge she's had in 24 years, and obviously the most serious.
She is in the Clinton camp. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, we can only go by history. We know she said she's neutral. We could look at different acts and we could have different opinions. Her history has certainly been with the Clintons for a long time.
What do you know about Tim Canova? I interviewed him the other night. He sounds like a microcosm of Bernie Sanders' campaign. He doesn't take PAC money. He doesn't, deal with that kind of stuff. He wants small donors. He believes in democracy. He doesn't like the corporate connections. What about him?
Well, Tim is a law professor down here in South Florida at Nova Southeastern University. In fact, it's the law school I graduated from, but he came many years after me because I feel and am much older than him. So he kind of brings that professor background, but also that grassroots activism that is very reflective of the Sanders campaign. I think what's most interesting and what gives him the greatest exposure, not only after what Senator Sanders did yesterday, but specifically the fact that, obviously Senator Sanders has proven to be a fundraising phenomenon. And what's most interesting is he's now transferred this to some extent, not only in this congressional district, but there's several across the country of folks he's picked, and he's kind of turned on the online, valve to flow money. So you have candidates who normally would never be able to raise money, whether it's against an incumbent or not, and who are raising very large sums of money online, which frankly has no overhead to it either. So it's worth actually even more than the actual dollars.
So the national pressure that Debbie Wasserman-Schultz is feeling right now, you're saying that she may not feel that at home. She may be so well entrenched with her constituents that this might have somewhat of an effect, but certainly not one that's going to knock her out.
Well, I think Canova is a phenomenon much like Bernie is. So you're dealing with the unpredictable. Would I call Debbie the favorite at this point? Sure, I would.
Sure.
But would you have asked me, would he a month ago, would the guy raise $1 million against her? I would have said, of course not. So I would still call Debbie the favorite. And Debbie's very smart and very tough. In fact, some of the toughness is what people point to as why there's a little bit of a problem. But I think she takes him very, very seriously.
Okay.
Debbie, you can like Debbie, hate Debbie, love Debbie, but give her due, she's very smart. So I don't think she's taking Tim Canova for granted. He is everywhere. I'm out there all the time. He's certainly in a lot of places all the time. And this district is about 2/3 my county, which is Broward, which is greater Fort Lauderdale, and about 1/3 into Dade County, which is Miami. So at least in the Broward part, he's out there a pretty fair amount of time. And I have to say, I see Debbie a fair amount of time in a lot of places.
Is she going to need Hillary Clinton to jump into this?
I don't foresee Hillary Clinton doing that. I do not. Because, frankly, in all due deference to Debbie, and they are friends for a very long time, the stakes and the arching issues are much bigger than a congressional race. It's the presidency of the United States. I would be shocked to see Hillary get herself involved in this race. Even more shocked, if that's possible, then I would have said Donald Trump would be the Republican nominee.
Okay, well, Bernie Sanders has jumped in. Does that shock you?
A little bit.
Okay.
It did surprise me, but it didn't shock me. Hillary Trump jumping in would shock me.
All right. This is Bernie Sanders saying that Hillary Clinton is jumping the gun in an interview last week by saying that she's going to be the nominee.
And I think we're going to do very well in the 9 remaining contests. So I think Secretary Clinton is jumping the gun a little bit here. Here is the scenario. We understand that we have about 46% of the pledged delegates. In order to get 50%, we're going to have to do very, very, very well in the remaining 9 contests. I think we have a shot. It's going to be an uphill climb, but I think we have a shot to do that. We're going to fight as hard as we can for every delegate and every vote.
Mitch Ceasar, your take on that?
I'm not surprised. I think, frankly, if I was Hillary, I probably would have done the same thing. She's less than 100. She's 80-something delegate votes away. I think where Senator Sanders has a problem is because he wants to convince the superdelegates.
Yeah.
And the problem is if Hillary continues, as it seems she is, to beat him by 300 among regular delegates, not superdelegates, it's very hard for him to make an argument for the superdelegates to come over.
There's no question. I don't think there's any doubt about that. All right, now let's fly ahead of the aircraft a little bit here, Mitch. There's so much concern about bringing the party together. Why doesn't Hillary Clinton start making some overtures to Bernie Sanders that, Bernie, you'd be a great running mate? I don't think that Hillary needs to go to an African American or a Latino because Donald Trump has alienated those people so much. Where are they going to go? So if you're concerned about the Bernie Sanders people coming on board, at least offer him to be on the ticket. You don't know if he's going to say yes or not, but what argument would any Bernie Sanders supporter have if they find out that Hillary Clinton would be willing to put Bernie Sanders on the ticket? I mean, if you want to win the White House, isn't that the best formula?
Well, first, let's start off with we don't know, you and I, what back channels may or may not be in use right now. If not to do that, to do other things to bring unity together. Because I would certainly hope back channels are already in movement, because if they're not, that's very bad. Secondarily, I'd be, again, not to overuse the word shocked, maybe I could use the word huge, because that's much better now these days. I don't think Bernie would take it. Of course, the best case for Hillary might be to offer to him knowing he won't take it.
Well, that's a great point. But Hillary has the talking point to every progressive in the country. Look, I wanted Bernie on the ticket. He didn't want it. He thinks he can do more in the Senate.
I think Bernie.
How does she lose in that deal?
Well, you don't know, because also, again, I think Bernie views himself as the head of a movement. I really do believe that he doesn't look at, much less as a candidate now, but I think always the clear strain was that of heading up a movement which he could set his mark, not only for this election, but maybe for elections in the future, or protocols that might or might not be changed in the future. So I think maybe even on that question, maybe Hillary senses that and maybe doesn't want to be rejected. I mean, obviously we're not privy to that.
Yeah. Hillary keeps referring to what she went through in 2008, and she expects Bernie Sanders to work hard to win the White House, that she'll win the White House and beat Donald Trump. He says he would do that. She kind of wants to hold his feet to the fire on that. Bernie Sanders has never said he would not work for Hillary Clinton, so I don't know who's in Hillary Clinton's ear. I thought that interview on CNN was bad advice across the board. She came off as too expecting. Look, the numbers are going to take care of themselves. And if he wants to stay in the race, let him stay in the race. There's not going to be any communication between the two until after California. She says that she's ready to talk to him. But if she's concerned, if the Clinton people are so concerned about you winning the White House, and if they really want to win the White House, you can shut down all the critics by saying, Bernie, why don't you run with me? Why don't you do a one term? There's no way Hillary could lose on that deal. I mean, who would be criticizing her? It would be showing total respect to, quote, as you say, his movement. It would be showing total respect to what she claims that there's so much more that they're together on than difference on. I just think it's a no-brainer, especially since you're going up against Trump, who's already alienated every demographic that's out there that might vote Democratic anyway.
Well, remember, the big concern that people are having is not that Bernie's staying in the race. A lot of the people are saying that they're concerned that the rhetoric doesn't get any more negative, because Trump is already picking up, literally word by word, the rhetoric, that Bernie's still using.
I got that.
I don't know if that would deter somebody from making an offer or encourage them. This is why you and I are currently not running for president.
Well, isn't the biggest question mark right now, are people going to be pissed off if Bernie's people aren't respected? That's really the big thing right now. I think that is bigger than any voting block out there. I think it's,
and I agree with you. And I think the point that we'll be telling will be how the convention goes, because if everybody feels respected, and I mean both sides, I think we walk out of there unified, and I think, that and the fact that it's Donald Trump are the two greatest unifying factors that are going to impact the Democratic Party.
Yeah. All right, Mitch Ceasar, always great to visit. Ed Schultz News and Commentary right here on WeGotEd.com, RawStory.com, and RingOfFireRadio.com. Stay with us. We're right back. Hey, folks, you've heard me talk about BioGreen Clean. I'm going to show you right now on my airplane just how tough this is. I want you to keep in mind, chemical-free, 100% plant-derived, biodegradable. It is the safest cleaner that you can get, and it's the most effective. Go to our website, WeGotEd.com, or go to biogreenclean.com. www.BIOGREENCLEAN and order today. It's time to continue our conversation about mechanical insulation. Mechanical insulation is for the piping systems in our nation's commercial and industrial facilities. Facility owners are burning up billions of dollars through the lack of mechanical insulation on these piping systems. Call the iSave team. Insulation saves America valuable energy, and this team of energy conservation specialists is shovel-ready to save you money. Visit iSaveTeam.org to have a specialist give your plant an energy audit.
We perpetuate a culture of crime all the way from Wall Street right down to the main street in our hometowns. It's worse than it has been since FDR took control of the problem and said we can't count on industry taking care of the American labor. They probably have already engaged into some type of criminal cover-up, and the law prohibits the government from even doing anything about it.
Catch America's lawyer Mike Papantonio on YouTube at youtube.com/GoLeftTV.
Ed Schultz News and Commentary, Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSave team bringing this production. All right. The Clinton people are supposed to be so uptight about Bernie Sanders moving forward and Bernie Sanders not giving up and fighting all the way to the end and exhausting every possible effort. And the Clinton people are supposed to be upset, saying, well, the rhetoric, well, this is hurting the party. How are we ever going to unify? But then Hillary says this. Listen.
Let me say that I don't think he's had a single negative ad ever run against him. And that's fine. But we know what we're going into, and we understand what it's going to take to win in the fall. And finally, I would say that, polls this far out mean nothing. They certainly mean nothing to me. And I think...
Well, if that's the case, there shouldn't be any consternation or concern whatsoever from the Clinton camp, from any of her surrogates, that Bernie is still doing this and that he's, quote, hurting the party. If Donald Trump has never had a negative ad against him, if nobody's ever really thrown anything at him yet, what's the big concern? It's not even June 1st. Ed Schultz, News and Commentary. We're back tomorrow.